they don't understand it, even when you translate it. I remember a missionary came in, another missionary, didn't believe you needed to learn the language, and used a mixed Portuguese and some other language called Nhangatu, which used to be spoken in that area, which the Piraha remember a little bit of, or know a little bit of. And he preached a sermon when I wasn't there, and I came back, and the Piraha guy said, I used to want to go to town, but I don't want to go to town anymore. I wanted to see how Brazilians live, but I don't want to go there anymore. Why not? Well, this guy came, and he said that this guy he said was God and Jesus wanted me to go to town, and they were going to put me in a building that I couldn't get out of, and they were going to kill me and take me to heaven. That was his message. That's how he interpreted going to church and then afterwards going to heaven. He didn't know what heaven was anyway. For the Piraha, here's a very interesting view of the universe. I looked at the ground, and I got the word for ground, migi, and I got the word for the ground is wet, the phrase, migi, e point. And then I looked up at the sky, and I asked the Piraha, what's that called, migi? It sounded like the word for ground. And it turned out that it was the same word. And the cloudy sky is migi, e point, just like wet ground is migi, e point. And it turns out that the Piraha have just, the universe is layered. And we happen to live in this biosphere that's bounded by the sky and the ground, which are just both barriers, so they're both called migi. And there could be entities above that, but they wouldn't be supernatural entities. They would be entities like us, but maybe with different characteristics of some sort. And there could be entities below that. But the Piraha don't worry much about that because they live where they're at now. In fact, I began to realize that not only do they not have creation myths, they do not have, they have the simplest kinship system known. They just have a word for generation above, no gender distinction. My generation, no gender distinction, which is brother, sister, cousin, uncle, anything like that. And generation below, which without any gender distinction. And then two words for biological son and biological daughter. And that's that. That's the Piraha kinship system. They don't have any words for colors. They can describe colors, they see colors, but they'll say that looks like blood, or that looks like the urukun plant, or that looks like water, or that's not quite yet ripe, or that's transparent, or that looks like it has an opaque eye. And those are the ways they describe different colors. They don't have any words for numbers. In fact, the article they published in the journal Cognition was chosen by Discover magazine last year as one of the top 100 science stories, simply because it's the first time a group has been documented that doesn't have any numbers, not even the number one. But I'm sure there are others, but this is the first time it's been documented. And they don't have quantifiers, so they don't have a word that means all. They have a word that means a lot of them. Actually, we don't tend to use the word all in its most precise sense. So like, if your son or daughter comes home and says, but mom, everybody's going to the party, they don't literally mean everybody. They just mean the people that they know they consider relevant. And we can use the literal meaning back to get a laugh, but not out of our children, when we say, it can't be the case that everybody's going because you're not. That's not the meaning that they were using. They don't have words like that. They have words that mean like a lot, that have more or less the function of all, but not that precise function of all like we do. They don't have a number of characteristics that we thought they might have had. They can whistle the language and hum the language. They don't have to use consonants and vowels. And they don't have creation myths. So I thought and worked on this for years and years, and finally decided to put forth a hypothesis that's become really controversial. It's gotten me vilified by lots of people and other people on my side. Just depends on what you believe before you heard my hypothesis. And that is that one of the most important values in Piraha culture is what I call immediacy of experience. If you look at their stories, they don't talk about things to come. They might talk about what they're going to do tomorrow based on the things they're doing today. They don't talk about the distant future. They don't talk about the distant past. All of their stories and all of their songs have to do with what they did today, what they saw today. They don't make a big distinction between dreaming and regular experience. They don't think that dreaming is just regular experience, but it's another experience, and they don't talk about them as being that differently. Why wouldn't they have color words or number words? Because these generalize and they range across things that go beyond immediacy of experience. They don't have creation myths because that's certainly something you haven't experienced, is the creation. Why would you talk about something if you can't experience it? So they in fact have suffixes that go on the end of their verbs that tell you whether they saw it, or they overheard it, or they inferred it. And evidence is very important to them. They're sort of like the original show me state. or as one philosopher said, the ultimate empiricism. Well, I wasn't ready to give up on it. I wanted to get to the bottom of this, and I felt surely that if I worked hard enough, I would find the redemptive analogy still. So one morning, about 10 a.m., I was sitting there having coffee with a group of men in the village. They do love sweet coffee. They mainly like the sugar, and you can put as little coffee in it as you want. and we were sitting around having this brown sugar water, and one of the guys said, "Hey, Dan, I want to talk to you. You've been here for a long time, and we know that you love this place. That's why you came here, because this is a beautiful place. We have lots of fish here, and you don't have that in the States." And he said, "But, we've had people tell us about Jesus before. Somebody else told us about Jesus, and then another guy came and told us about Jesus, and now you're telling us about Jesus. And we really like you, but see, we're not Americans, and we don't want to know about Jesus. We don't, we like to drink, and we like to have a good time, and we like, the equivalent of multiple sex partners is the way it came out, and that applies to both genders. And he said, so we really don't want to hear about that. You can stay here. We like you. We like your kids, but we don't want to hear about Jesus or God or anyone. We're tired of that. So I felt like, well, they don't want to hear about it. I shouldn't tell them about it. So I moved to another village. Spoke the same language. And I had been there for several years and showed them film strips. And actually, it's a very interesting thing. A lot of indigenous groups like the Piraha don't make a distinction between fiction and fact. I mean, they don't have this tradition of theater. So if I show them a film strip or a movie of Jesus, they think that's real. And so you could say that it's actually deceitful to show these things, because you're coming from another culture with all this money and all this access to power and all these airplanes and all these things you can do. The people want to please you. For all they know, you could call in a bombing raid and have them wiped out at some point. They don't know what you are really to deal with. In fact, just 3 years ago, Piraha guy said, hey Dan, do Americans die? I said, yeah, we die. Why? Because you're really, really old and you're not dead yet. I said, I'm not that old. Yes, you are. You're really old. And, I didn't want him to do any empirical investigation of the possibility, but when you show them these things and you tell them what you believe, they believe you've got some reason for saying it. So they came around and a group of men at this other village said, Dan, so tell us a little bit more about Jesus. Is he brown like us, or is he white like you? And how tall is he? And what sorts of things does he know how to do? Does he like to hunt and fish and stuff, or what does he do? And I said, well, I don't know what color he is. I never saw him. You never saw him? Well, your dad saw him. Because you can give information that was told to you by somebody who was alive at the time. And I said, no, my dad never saw him. They said, well, who saw him? And I said, well, they're all dead. It was a long time ago. Why are you telling us about it? If you never saw him, and you don't know anyone who ever saw him, and those are the two basic forms of evidence for the Piraha, why would you tell us about him? We don't want to hear about this. So then I translated it, and I paid a Piraha to repeat after me on the tape the Gospel of Mark. So I did translate the Gospel of Mark. And I had this Piraha guy saying it, and it sounded pretty natural. We had a little music to it, hand crank, tape recorder, and I gave it to them. And I sat around with a group of men around the fire, and they're playing this, and they're understanding it. I know they're understanding it because they're asking questions, and they say, who's talking on this tape? Sounds like Pewattai. And I said, it is Pewattai. And they said, he doesn't believe this stuff.